Right. So this is where we stopped last time. Okay, public interface cell phone. I told you that what an interface is. Interface is just like, you can say, the outline of what we will be doing. Fine. For example, interface cell phone over here describes that it will have two functions named as call and text. Right. Okay. We will not be declaring the functions. Right. We are just declaring the functions. We are not putting anything inside them. Okay. Right. So there is a question being asked. Right. Uh, Wanted to know, can we access class created? You want the Java program, Shinu, created in day 1 and day 2? Right. Just mail me, I'll send you the Java programs. Okay. Chirag is saying that he cannot launch Eclipse. There is some error. Yeah. Yeah. So you want to access classes from different projects. Okay, it's like day 1 is one project, day 2 is the other project in Eclipse. From day 2 you want to create access day 1. Look, there are various ways for that. Okay, you can create a jar file of day 1 project. You can right click on it. You can simply write over here, simply select export day 1 as a archive file, right, or a jar file. Okay, make a jar file of this project, include this project into day 2 as a jar, and you can use it. Yeah, include it in day 2 as a jar, like we add the jar of Selenium. So I'll make a jar of day 1 and include it in day 2. Or you can also go to project, Java build path, okay, and you can add day 1 from here into day 2. So you will be able to use day 1 inside day 2. No, we don't. We don't have this kind of requirement in automation. We just use one project. Yes, yes. Thank you. Right. Chirag is you're getting an error. Exit code 13. Look, sometimes you might get an error message while starting up Eclipse. Okay. If you get it, then you should go and install JDK. Alright. Go to Google and just type download JDK. Fine. And you simply install JDK. Okay. Right from the first link, it will go. If it still doesn't go, then download 32-bit Eclipse. It will go away automatically. Okay. Right. Now, coming over to cell phone class, right, this is call function, this is text function, and this only describes what this cell phone will do. It doesn't have the function body, right? So interface is like this, right? But what is the use of interface? Fine, let me make a new project. I'll call that project as day 3. Fine. So today is the third trial class. I don't think so we'll be able to make 5 trial classes in this batch, because already 21 people have registered and I don't take more than 25 people, and I don't think so after today or tomorrow 4 will be left, right? So day 4, sorry, day 3, and out here what I'll do is I'll copy cellphone.java inside the source folder. Fine. And what we'll do is that we'll make a new class known as, say I can make a new class Nokia. Fine. Okay. And what I'll do is, Nokia is a cell phone. Alright. So I'll write over here public class Nokia implements cell phone. Right. This is known as implementing an interface. Okay. By saying that Nokia is implementing cell phone, I am practically telling that Nokia is bound to implement all the functions inside the cell phone interface. If a class is implementing an interface, right, that class should actually implement all the functions of the interface. That's why I'm getting an error over here. Right, the error says that the type Nokia must implemented the abstract methods. Right, so you click on this link over here, add unimplemented functions. Automatically, Eclipse will add both the functions call and text inside your Nokia.java. Right, now the thing is, it's mandatory for the class to implement both the functions. Even if I remove one of the functions, I'll get an error. Okay, so if a class is implementing a function, it has to implement all the functions in that interface. Sorry, if a class is implementing an interface. Right, now these are the two signs override. Okay, these signs implement, or these signs convey that these functions are coming from the interface cell phone. It's not mandatory to have them, you can remove it. Right, but technically this is known as an annotation. If a third person looks at your code, he will be able to understand that these two functions are coming up from the interface. Okay, inside each of the function I can type in something. I can write system.out.println Nokia calling Nokia text message. Fine. So this is a class which implements the cell phone interface. Fine, and inside it I have got two functions, call and text, and inside that I can write Nokia calling Nokia text message. Similarly, if I create a new class known as Samsung, fine, I'll write over here Samsung class also implements the cell phone interface. Okay, I'll have to add the unimplemented functions in this as well. Right, and similarly in this as well I can write system.out.println Samsung calling and Samsung text message. Fine, right. So yeah, this is actually overriding Govardhan. This is actually overriding what I am doing right now. Okay, right. There is another concept known as overloading. I'll talk about that later on. Fine. Now, why did I do so? Why did I write over here implements cell phone? Okay, I've got two classes, Nokia, right, and Samsung. I have written both the classes. Both the classes implement the cell phone interface, right? And I simply implemented the functions. But what good did it do to me? Why did I make like this? Right? That is, I first make a central class over here, interface over here, and both the two classes are implementing the interface. Right? So what good does it do? Look, if you talk about like a layman, then you will say that fine, it's not required actually. You can just omit the interface and simply make two classes, Nokia and cell phone, with the functions inside it, call and text. Right? Why do you need an interface? Okay, the thing is, it gives a kind of structure to my application. Okay, just by looking at the cell phone interface, right, you can come to know that fine, all the classes which are implementing this interface will have these two functions. Tomorrow, if a new class comes up, say iPhone, then it will also have these two functions. Right, it kind of gives a structure to the application, that is, whatever you define in your interface, right, all those functions would be there inside the implementing classes. So you really don't have to worry tomorrow that if a new cell phone class comes up like iPhone, what kind of functions will there be in it, right? So these two functions will be there. All right. Now, how does this thing helps us in Selenium? Fine. In the last class, I had actually uh, taken down the Java docs for Selenium, right, inside Eclipse. Right, I'll open the Java docs. There's a question being asked that all the variables also carried over, only the functions, right? The variables are also carried over. Okay, I'll talk about the interface variables in some time. Right, we can update the interface. Will, if you want to update the interface, you can update. For example, I make a new function, public void, say, hold on, recharge. Okay, since a new function has come up, both the classes will throw up errors. You will have to implement the function in both the classes. Okay, you'll have to implement the function in both the classes. If you don't want to implement it, right, you call this class as abstract class. Public abstract class Samsung implements cell phone. Fine. That means abstract means something which is incomplete. Okay. If you decide not to implement the functions of the interface, right, if you decide not to implement all the functions of the interface, you can make the class abstract, right, but you will not be able to create the objects of this class. If the class is abstract, you cannot create the object. Look, if you add an additional method to the interface, all you need to do is that you need to implement that method over here. That will not impact the objects created of the Nokia class. You will be able to access that function from the object which is created. No, the additional method will automatically come inside the object. Okay, I'll tell you in some time. I'll tell you. Okay, I'll show you. Right. Yes, a class can implement multiple interfaces. Yes, you can implement multiple interfaces, Vidhi. You can put a comma and write the name of the other interfaces, whatever you want. Okay, like this. All right. Fine. Look, everything will come to you. It will come to you, right? Just be with me as you practice. Okay, your doubts will get cleared when you make programs yourself. Okay, you can try the various permutations and combinations, and you'll come to know, right? Yeah, Sunita, if you have any questions, you can ask. Fine. So abstract class, I was saying that if Nokia is implementing cell phone, fine, and Nokia says that fine, I don't want to implement this text function, right? So there are two ways: either you implement the text function or you make the class abstract. Abstract means incomplete, okay, but you will not be able to create the object of this class in this case. All right, fine. So although we don't use these things in Selenium, you will never use abstract classes, right? I'm just telling you because at times in interview they can ask you, right? So you cannot create the object of interface as well. I'll tell you which objects you can create, which objects you cannot create, right? So you'll come to know, right? So that's what I told you, Bridges, that abstract class is something which is not completely implementing the interface. Fine. If you look at Selenium and if you look at the documentation, fine, go step by step. In another 15-20 minutes all your doubts will be cleared off. Fine, just be with me, right? Just be with me. In 15-20 minutes all your doubts will be cleared, right? Now um, over here you have got all the classes mentioned on the left hand side, right? Over here whatever is written in italics is an interface. Fine, that day I also told you, right? I also told you that day, right? Now for example, I told you that mouse is an interface, right? And these are the implementing classes: event firing mouse and HTML mouse. These are the two classes which implement the mouse interface, right? Mouse interface has got these functions, so obviously these functions will be there in the implementing classes as well, right? Similarly, everybody has heard about the word WebDriver. Okay, so there is an interface known as WebDriver. Technically, WebDriver is an interface. Okay, and all our major classes, all the browser classes like Chrome driver, Firefox driver, HTML unit, Internet Explorer, Safari driver, all these classes they implement the WebDriver interface. Okay, there is a class known as Remote WebDriver which I didn't tell you about. Like this class is actually in Selenium. If you want to work on Selenium GRID, you use Remote WebDriver. Okay, and event firing driver is another class which is actually used for complex user gestures like moving mouse or something, right? We'll do everything. Okay, be with me, right? Now technically in WebDriver is an interface and all these are the implementing classes. Fine, so that means that whatever functions you define in WebDriver class, like close function will close the browser, find element function will find some element on the web page, okay, get page title, get page URL, right, navigate to some URL, so quit will quit everything, right? So all these functions will actually be present inside all these driver classes. So you really don't have to worry that if you have to click on a link in Chrome or if you have to click on a link in Safari or IE or Firefox, what will be the command? Will the command be different or same? The command would be same. Okay, it is similar to this thing, that is in both Nokia as well as Samsung the functions are same, right? I'll tell you, hold on. I'll create a new class known as test, fine, and inside it I'll create the object of Nokia n equals to new Nokia, okay, and I'll create the object of Samsung. Samsung S equals to new Samsung. Fine. You cannot create object of interface in Java. You cannot write cell phone C equals to new cell phone. That is not possible. This will give you an error. You cannot create the object of an interface. It is illegal. Right. So when I'm writing Nokia N equals to new Nokia and Samsung S equals to new Samsung, right? I can call both the functions n dot call, n dot text, s dot call, and s dot text. Right. So someone was asking a question that if I add a new function tomorrow inside the interface, okay, and I implement that function over here inside the Nokia and Samsung class, right, then I will have access to that function over here as well. Fine, that will automatically come up in the object. Okay, when I run this program, I get the output Nokia calling Nokia text message, Samsung calling and Samsung text message. That is fine. Okay, it is coming as expected, right? So this will call the call and text of Nokia and this will call the call and text of Samsung. Okay, if you look at the WebDriver documentation, similarly, when you create the object of Firefox driver and when you create the object of Chrome driver, you will get the same functions which are there inside the WebDriver interface. Okay, for example, if I go inside day 2 and I have my Selenium basics implemented over here, right, I will uncomment this code. Okay, so I have the object of Firefox driver, I have the object of Chrome driver. F1 is the object of Firefox driver and C1 is the object of Chrome driver. Fine. So if you write over here F1 dot, you will get some functions. For example, a function known as get, which takes the URL, which takes you to some URL. Fine. So similarly, C1 will also have the same set of functions because both of them implement the same interface. Okay, I hope you are getting my point. Get function would be there in both of them. So you really don't have to worry that what about how to fire a particular command in Firefox and will that process be different than Chrome. Okay, right, fine. No, Brijesh, I did not explain this concept. No, Brijesh, I did not. I think you saw the recorded session somewhere. Okay, so till now I have not taught you these things. In day 2 I told you about the concept of objects, that how objects are created. Okay, in day 3 I am talking about interfaces. Yeah, you must have seen the recording. Fine. Now moving ahead. Okay, moving ahead. Just a minute. Right. Now moving ahead. Uh, what about working with multiple browsers? Right. That is again a very important thing which you need to know. If I create a new class known as or a dynamic browser, fine. Suppose I have a variable, fine. I have a variable say string browser equals to inside the variable I store Chrome, fine. And whatever is the variable over here, I want to do the testing on that particular browser. Later on, we'll be reading this variable from an external source like an XLS file or you can say a properties file. Okay, we'll be reading the variable from an external file that we want to test on this particular browser, but if I have this kind of variable, fine, then obviously I have to test it on Chrome. Okay, now tomorrow if this variable changes, if I make this variable name to Mozilla, then whatever code I am writing over here, it should work on Mozilla, right? Common sense says that fine, you can keep a check that fine, if browser is equal to Mozilla, fine, then you create the object of Firefox driver, that is Firefox driver. Hold on, I have not included the Selenium libraries in the project. I'll include the Selenium jar files. Right. So in this case, you create the object of Firefox driver. Okay. Now I can write that else if the browser is equal to Chrome, fine. Then you create the object of Chrome driver. Right. Because I need to work on Chrome. Fine. So in that case, you can write these two lines over here. Okay. Now if the browser is Mozilla, I am creating object of Mozilla, and if the browser is Chrome, I am creating the object of Chrome. But the problem is, right, the problem is what after this? Should I use, should I continue to use F1 or C1 over here? Okay. If I write F1 dot, although I'll not be able to access F1 over here, any variable you declare inside if statement, you can only use it within if statement. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll declare F1 equals to null in the beginning, and hold on, C1 equals to null in the beginning. Fine. Initialize F1, initialize C1 over here. Now I can use F1 over here. But what to do? Are you getting my point? Are you understanding the problem which I am facing? Although I have initialized F1 and C1 over here, right? Which one to use after that? I cannot just write everything inside an if statement that if the browser is Mozilla, then initialize Mozilla, then F1 dot, go to the website, some website, right? Then do the testing, right? Similarly, I cannot write over here C1 dot go. I cannot repeat my code. Okay, I just cannot repeat my code for every, although the commands are same, right? If I want to close the browser after that, you can write f1 dot quit, this will stop it. Or if you want to close Chrome driver, you can write c1 dot quit, this will stop Chrome. But I just cannot repeat all the commands inside each if and else statements. Tomorrow if a new browser comes up, okay, if the new browser IE comes up, right, I just cannot repeat the commands for I also over here. Is there anyone who is not able to understand what I am trying to say? Right? Okay, I hope you are getting the logic. Right? So we are kind of stuck over here with the implementation. Right? So there is a solution for this. Okay, there is a proper solution for this. It's not that you work like this. The solution again comes from the concept of interfaces. Right? So this was the cell phone interface. This was the Nokia class, Samsung class, and this is the test class which we had created. Fine. Now what you can do is, hold on, if suppose, just be with me, you'll come to know. If suppose I'm right now I'm creating the object like this, Nokia n equals to new Nokia, Samsung s equals to new Samsung. If I write cell phone C equals to new Samsung. Now this is a little different. People get confused over here. So what I have written is that the interface reference C is equal to the object of Samsung class which is implementing the interface. Okay, right? The object reference of the interface, I'm pointing towards the object. Okay, now what is this? What does this mean? Right, this means that with C you can access all the functions in Samsung interface which are coming from the cell phone. Now suppose, hold on, I go to my Samsung and say I write another function over here which is a proprietary function for Samsung which is only available in Samsung. Right, for example, public void install Android app. Fine. So this is a kind of function which is only available in Samsung mobile. It's not there in, say, the Nokia mobile. Right. So install Android app. Okay. If I go to my test.java, when I create the object of Samsung over here, I can call that function. Fine. I can call the two functions which are coming from the interface, that is call and text, and I can also call the function install Android app. But if I create the object like this, wherein I write interface reference equals to the new class which is implementing the interface. Okay, you can write over here c dot call, you can write c dot text, right? But you cannot write c dot install Android app. You cannot call the functions which are proprietary of the class. Only those functions which are coming from the interface can be called like this. So what is the advantage of this? We did it, but what is the advantage of creating the object like this over this? Although we don't have the access to the functions which are owned by the class, right? What is the advantage of doing this? Okay, the advantage, hold on, the advantage of doing this is basically that suppose I write cell phone x equals to null. That means this reference is not pointing towards anything. This is the reference of an interface. Okay, right. I can make this reference point towards new Samsung later on. Okay, and work with it. Right. Probably called x dot call. Right. Later on my need, I can make it point towards new Nokia as well. And again use the function x dot call. It depending on my need. It is not pointing towards anything. I can make it point towards any object, object of Samsung or object of Nokia. Right. Hold on, guys. Okay. So I can actually make X point towards nothing in the beginning, and on my need, I can make it point towards object of Samsung or object of Nokia. Right. You can write interface reference equals to the object of new child class. This call function will call the call function of Samsung class. This call function will call the function of Nokia class. How is this helpful in Selenium? Right. We know that till now we have created the object in Selenium like this. We are writing Firefox driver equals to new Firefox driver. Okay, or we write Chrome driver, new Chrome driver. Right, that's how we actually create the object. Okay, fine. So there is no option. You have to create object of a separate driver. To work on a separate browser, you have to create the object of that driver. Okay. Now I can also write like this. WebDriver d1 equals to new Firefox driver. Over here I am writing the interface reference d1 equals to new Firefox driver, which is the child, so not the child class, but the implementing class. This Firefox driver class implements the WebDriver interface. Okay, right. So with D1 you can access all the functions which are there in the WebDriver interface and implemented in the Firefox driver class. Although you cannot implement the proprietary, or you cannot call the proprietary functions of the Firefox driver class with D1, right? But you can call all the functions of the WebDriver interface which are there in the Firefox driver class. Fine. Similarly, you can also write like this: WebDriver D2 equals to new Chrome driver. Fine. The advantage of writing this is that you can write something dynamic, right? You can write over here WebDriver D3 equals to null, and based on your requirement, you can make D3 point towards new Firefox driver, or you can also make D3 point towards new Chrome driver. Is there anyone who is not able to understand this? I hope you are able to grasp it. Okay. Okay. The question being asked is, can I repeat this? Uh, too much download at one time. Okay. Fine. Okay. I got your point. I know it's a little tough. Okay. Look, keep your mind very clear. Okay. I can create the object of Samsung class like this, or I can create the object of Samsung class like this. These are the two ways in which you can create the object. If you are creating the object like this, then you can access everything inside the Samsung class. If you are creating the object like this, then you have got two advantages. Okay, or you have got one advantage. Just go by one advantage. If you are creating the object like this, fine, then you can make it point dynamically. Okay, you can make the object point dynamically towards Samsung or Nokia, any child class, any class which is implementing the interface. Okay, you can declare your interface reference as null and then point it towards any particular class which is implementing the interface. All the functions. Bhajwaj, okay, the question being asked is, I'll come to it. Not you. You won't miss many functions in that case. Bridge, you won't miss many functions. All the functions are coming from the WebDriver interface. Okay, so right. So you can make X point towards Samsung or you can make X point towards Nokia. It's your will. Similarly, we do it in Selenium as well. We create the objects like this so that initially you can keep it null and make it point towards any driver at your will. You'll come to know. Hold on. I will go back to the class which I had created, test.java. Uh, just a minute. Dynamic browsers. We had a problem over here that I had to repeat the code inside each if statement. Fine. I don't need to do this. Okay. I'll just declare one reference globally. I'll write WebDriver driver equals to null. That is, it is not pointing towards any particular uh, web driver D capital. Okay. It is not pointing towards any object. Right. WebDriver is the interface, and all Firefox driver, Chrome driver, iDriver, they implement the interface. Now, if the browser is Mozilla, you can equate it to new Firefox driver. You can equate driver to new Firefox driver. Okay. If the browser is Chrome, fine. You can hold on. You can simply write that driver equals to new Chrome driver. Right. Similarly, for I as well, you can write driver equals to new Internet Explorer driver. You will have to set the path over here, system path. Fine. But dynamically, you are opening the browser. You are dynamically pointing driver to either Firefox driver or Chrome driver or iDriver, and then you can continue working with it. You can write driver dot go to some website, say http bbc.com. Sorry. Right. Then after that, you can fire the other driver commands as well. Okay. Right. So this is the advantage of interface. You just have to create the interface reference, make it null, point it dynamically to any driver, and after that the commands are same. The commands are same, right? So that is the advantage. Okay. Right. So hold on. There's a question being asked here. Hold on. Hold on, guys. Okay. So this is the thing. Anyone with any questions? Okay, in system.setProperty function, where do we get the key WebDriver dot? This is a standard key. You have to put that always. This is the standard wording which you need to put always. Okay, the value over here I told you that day, right? You need to download it from the Selenium website. Okay, in day 2 I told you that you can download it from Selenium website. Similarly, I told you in day 2 that for uh, I as well you need to download it from the Selenium website. Okay, I think people from class are adding me on Skype. Right, I'll add you after the class. Right. So now moving ahead. Right. Okay. Is there any system to be Safari? Yeah, for Safari also it is there, but Safari driver is not a very stable driver. Okay. It's got a lot of defects. Okay. There are a lot of problems. Okay. So yeah, whenever you use Chrome or I, you have to use system.setProperty. Okay. Senthil, I couldn't understand your question. Just remove the if else loop. I couldn't understand. You have to put the if else loop over here. That if the browser is Mozilla, then you need to open Firefox driver. If the browser is Chrome, you need to open this. Okay. Okay. The question is, if you want to run the script on all the three browsers parallelly, then you use Selenium GRID. That's what GRID does. It creates three nodes. Like you'll have to create a central node using GRID. You will create something known as hub. Okay, and with this hub you will connect three nodes. These nodes are separate PCs, and on these nodes you will run the script parallelly. Okay, right. Now what after this? I want to click on a link on bbc.com. I want to do something. Right, I want to interact with the web page. Right. So for that you need to know how to identify the various objects or the various components in your web page. Okay. So we'll do that tomorrow. Okay. Right, that's again a big topic. Right. So sure, Viral, you can reach me on Skype. I'm available on Skype. Right, if you want to ask some questions after session. Okay. So anyone with any questions? Right, I'll stop here. Okay, I know 10 minutes or 15 minutes are remaining. The next thing which I want to talk about is basically how to handle the various web components, how you can manage the web components by IDs, what XPath is, fine, and what are the various identification mechanisms or locator strategies. These are known as locator strategies, which you can follow. Look, the thing is, I don't want to take it right now because it's again a very vast thing. I want a continuous flow. I'll take it tomorrow. You can take down the recording for this class would be available in the regular link, right, which is, I think most of you have that. Yeah, this is the one, right. uh, yeah, this is the link where all the recordings will be available. Okay, you can have a look at this link. Every day I will add the recordings over here. Fine. Okay, so fine then.